Before the battle begins, the real war is already fought in the mind. This is Machiavelli's most brutal truth about psychological warfare. You don't need to crush someone in open conflict if you've already broken them internally. If their hands keep moving, but their spirit has cracked, you've already won. And here's the ruthless beauty of it. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to make threats. You only have to plant doubt. Because the moment someone starts doubting themselves in your presence, they're already losing to a ghost you've placed in their head. Machiavelli's golden rule of intimidation is simple. You don't have to be strong, you just have to appear strong. Before a competitor even challenges you, whether it's in business, influence, status, or attraction, you must build a myth, a psychological illusion so convincing they start measuring themselves against your image, not your reality. When others panic, you stay composed. When they ramble, you speak less but with absolute certainty. You move with calm detachment as if control is your natural state. You don't need a long history of wins, you just need posture. Posture makes people assume you've already triumphed somewhere else, and that assumption quietly kills confidence. Machiavelli's way of undermining someone is subtle but lethal. You don't call them weak, you don't argue, you don't insult, you imply. You remind me of someone I beat once. This will be interesting. I don't usually get challenged this easily. Don't stress. Everyone improves over time. These aren't direct attacks, they're smiles with blades hidden underneath. Your rival won't call it out, but they'll feel it. They'll start questioning themselves. And once they do, their guard drops. Every competitor hides something. They hope no one notices an insecurity, a weakness, a past failure. If you see it, mention it without accusation. You've got guts. Most people wait until they're ready. Reminds me of when I was starting out, making all the rookie mistakes. Impressive confidence, some might call it overconfidence, but I like it. You make them turn inward, thinking about their flaw without even naming it. And while they're busy trying to prove you wrong, they lose sharpness, rhythm, and dominance. You're not attacking their argument, you're attacking their identity. That's how you win before the first move is made. The second weapon in Machiavellian psychological warfare is controlling the frame. The frame is the invisible set of assumptions that shapes how people interpret everything that happens. Whoever sets the frame first owns the conversation before it even begins. If you start an interaction by saying, "I respect people who can stay calm under pressure," you've already laid a trap. Now, if your opponent shows frustration, they've failed a test they didn't even know existed. Everyone watching will see it, and they'll measure them against the standard you set. This works because humans naturally adapt to the expectations around them. When you define those expectations early, people bend to fit them without realizing. Negotiators use this constantly. They'll open with, "I value directness, let's keep things clear." From that point on, any hesitation or vague answer looks suspicious. You've shaped the battlefield without throwing a single punch. Machiavelli understood that people don't just respond to facts, they respond to context. If you frame someone as reckless but lucky, every bold move they make will be seen as recklessness, not courage. If you frame them as hesitant, every pause will look like weakness. You're not changing their behavior, you're changing how the behavior is read. The master move, though, is framing yourself. Without arrogance, you declare who you are in a way that builds authority. I don't waste time on battles I can't win. I only step in when I know I'll finish it. That kind of framing plants an idea. If you're here, it must mean the odds are already in your favor. People start treating your presence as a warning. And here's the real advantage: framing doesn't just work on your opponent. It works on the audience. And in most power games, the audience's opinion matters more than the player's moves. If the crowd sees you as calm, precise, and in control, they'll interpret events through that lens even if you stumble. That's why Machiavelli rarely fought battles on neutral ground. He made sure the crowd was already leaning his way before the first strike. When you own the frame, you don't just influence the fight, you write the story that will be told about it. The third pillar of Machiavellian psychological warfare is strategic mystery. People can prepare for what they can predict. But when they can't read you, when your intentions are blurred, they're forced into a state of caution. And cautious opponents are slow, hesitant, and easier to control. Machiavelli mastered what could be called calculated opacity. He never revealed the full picture, only fragments, just enough to keep others curious, but never enough for them to see the whole plan. You might share your goal, but not your method. Or your method, but not your timeline. Each piece you reveal is incomplete by design, forcing others to operate on guesswork. Mystery also magnifies your presence. When you speak rarely, people lean in. When you act sparingly, every move feels deliberate. The person who's always talking becomes background noise. The one who holds back becomes an event. Even in one-on-one situations, this works. If you don't respond immediately to a provocation, the other person starts to wonder, are they ignoring me? Waiting for the perfect moment. Planning something I can't see. That wondering drains their focus and feeds your advantage. But the balance is critical. Too much mystery and you risk becoming irrelevant. Too little and you become predictable. Machiavelli's brilliance was in knowing when clarity served him and when obscurity was the better weapon. The fascinating part, mystery invites projection. People fill in the blanks with their own fears and desires. If they're insecure, they'll imagine you're plotting against them. If they're competitive, they'll assume you're after the same prize. You don't have to make a move, they'll imagine one for you. And often the imagined version of you is far more powerful than the reality. That phantom is the one they strategize against the one they whisper about, the one that keeps them awake at night. Machiavelli understood that the less you reveal, the more they'll build that phantom in their own minds. And that phantom will work for you without you lifting a finger. The fourth pillar of Machiavellian psychological warfare is selective vulnerability. Most people think showing weakness is always a liability. Machiavelli knew the opposite can be true if you control what you show and when you show it. Selective vulnerability is never about genuine exposure. It's about revealing a flaw that costs you little, but makes others believe they found your soft spot. The purpose is to lower suspicion, disarm hostility, or make people underestimate you. For example, in a negotiation, appearing completely invincible can make others defensive. But if you accidentally reveal a minor limitation, something irrelevant to your real position, they might relax thinking they found leverage. Meanwhile, your true strengths remain untouched and they're now focused on the wrong target. Machiavelli often played the part of being too trusting in small matters or claimed ignorance on trivial details. This bait invited his rivals to feel smarter or stronger, while the real work happened where they weren't looking. When people think they've spotted your weakness, they stop searching for the real one. The key to using selective vulnerability effectively: it must be harmless if exploited. It must make you seem relatable or non-threatening. It must redirect attention away from your real advantage. Even in leadership, controlled vulnerability has value. Admitting you don't have all the answers on your terms can make followers feel closer to you. People rally around leaders who feel human, not untouchable statues. But the danger is in overexposure. Once you start revealing weaknesses without control, you're no longer being strategic, you're genuinely compromised. Machiavelli's rule was simple: never reveal a flaw unless it serves a purpose. Because when you choose the crack, they see you decide where they aim. And if you've chosen well, their aim will always be off. The fifth pillar of Machiavellian psychological warfare is controlling emotional temperature. Every interaction, whether it's a negotiation, a debate, or a casual conversation, has a temperature: tense, calm, hostile, excited. Whoever sets and controls that temperature controls the pace, tone, and ultimately the outcome. Machiavelli understood that emotions are contagious, often more so than logic. If you let someone else set the emotional tone, you're already playing inside their frame. But if you can walk into a heated situation and cool it down, or into a stagnant one, and raise the energy, you quietly take the lead without announcing it. The trick is to never automatically mirror someone else's emotion. If they're aggressive, you slow your pace and lower your voice, forcing them to adjust to you. If they're uncertain, you speak with clarity and confidence, giving them something steady to follow. Over time, they unconsciously sync with your rhythm. In negotiations, this can be deadly effective. Machiavelli might start slow and indifferent, letting the other side talk themselves into urgency. Then at the right moment, he'd inject sharp, decisive energy, making his terms feel like the natural resolution the conversation had been building toward all along. In everyday power dynamics, it looks like this. In conflict, remaining calm while the other person escalates makes them appear unstable while you seem in control. In influence, matching someone's excitement at a key moment can make them feel deeply connected to you. In leadership, shifting a group's energy on command makes you the emotional anchor everyone looks to. The danger lies in reacting without thinking. If you let others pull you into their emotional state, you lose the ability to direct the flow. Machiavelli's discipline was to decide in advance what emotional state would serve him, then act as if it already existed, letting others fall into alignment. When you can change the mood of a room without force, people start to equate your presence with stability and control. And once they do, they begin to follow you not because you ask, but because they feel steadier when you're there. Machiavelli would put it simply, control the mood and you control the move. The sixth pillar of Machiavellian psychological warfare is weaponized silence. Silence isn't empty, it's a tool, a pressure point, and sometimes the most strategic move you can make. Most people are deeply uncomfortable with silence. They rush to fill it, and in doing so, they often reveal more than they intended. Machiavelli understood this instinct and used it to his advantage. By saying nothing, he forced others to confront their own thoughts, fears, and insecurities. In a negotiation, silence after an offer creates tension. The other side starts wondering, did I ask for too much? Too little? Did I miss something? The longer you remain quiet, the more they'll talk, and every word they speak gives you more leverage. In conflict, silence after an accusation compels the accuser to keep speaking, often over-explaining or contradicting themselves. Without raising your voice, you've just made them work harder and expose their weaknesses. But silence only works when it's framed. Machiavelli didn't sit quietly with a blank stare. His silence was paired with steady eye contact, calm posture, and the sense that he was choosing not to speak. That choice is what makes others uneasy. There's also the tactic of delayed response. In today's world of instant messages and immediate feedback, waiting before replying signals that you move on your own time, not on someone else's schedule. This isn't avoidance, it's control. You're showing that you don't react on command. Silence can even amplify your presence. If you've been active and vocal, then suddenly withdraw into stillness, people notice. They wonder what changed, what you're planning, and whether they should be worried. That speculation is often more powerful than anything you could say outright. The key is precision. Too much silence and you risk creating distance or losing momentum. Too little and it loses its edge. Machiavelli knew exactly when to speak and when to let the weight of unspoken words hang in the air. Because sometimes the most intimidating sound in the room is the one you choose not to make. The seventh pillar of Machiavellian psychological warfare is controlled unpredictability. People fear what they can't anticipate because it forces them to stay cautious. If they can't map your next move, they can't build a plan to stop it. Controlled unpredictability is not the same as being erratic. Erratic behavior shows a lack of control. Machiavelli's unpredictability was deliberate and intentional disruption of patterns to keep others off balance. If you always respond slowly, choose one key moment to respond instantly. If you're known for staying quiet, pick the right time to speak with force and finality. If you usually let others lead the discussion, suddenly take the lead. These breaks from your established rhythm make people realize they can never fully read you. The foundation is stability. Without a stable baseline, your unpredictability will feel like chaos. With a baseline, it feels calculated, and that's what keeps people on edge. They start asking themselves, if they did that now, what might they do next time? In business, this might mean occasionally accepting a deal you'd normally reject just to keep rivals from thinking they know your thresholds. In personal relationships, it might be showing a flash of emotion after long restraint, reminding people there are depths they haven't seen. The goal isn't to confuse everyone, it's to prevent them from boxing you in. When people believe they can predict your every move, they prepare countermeasures. When they can't, they hesitate. And hesitation is often all the advantage you need. Used sparingly, controlled unpredictability builds a reputation. You are consistent enough to be trusted, but dynamic enough to be feared. People tread more carefully, not because you've threatened them, but because they don't know what crossing you might trigger. Machiavelli would sum it up like this: predictable men can be managed. Unpredictable men must be respected. The eighth and final pillar of Machiavellian psychological warfare is the controlled ending. In any encounter, whether it's a negotiation, a debate, or a conflict, how you leave is often more important than how you enter. People rarely remember every detail of what was said, but they always remember the final moment. Machiavelli understood that the person who controls the ending controls the story that gets told afterward. Even if the middle of the interaction was messy, a strong exit can reframe the entire event in your favor. Sometimes this meant leaving with a short, deliberate line that lingered in the air. We'll see. Think carefully before the next step. That's enough for today. Other times it meant taking an action, a handshake, held a second too long, gathering your papers before the other side was ready to end, or walking away while they were still speaking. These aren't random gestures. They're signals that you decide when the interaction is over. A controlled ending is also about restraint. You don't need to win every exchange in the moment you need to win the final exchange. If you rush to prove yourself at every step, you exhaust your influence. But if you choose to let small things slide while saving your sharpest point for the close, that point will define the memory. The beauty of this tactic is that it works on both your opponent and the audience. To the opponent, it plants the seed that you always have the last move. To the audience, it confirms that you were in control the entire time. Machiavelli played for legacy, not applause. He knew that when you leave on your own terms, people will rewrite the whole encounter in their minds to fit that ending. And that's the final truth. The last move isn't just the end of the game. It's the moment that decides how the game will be remembered.